Yeah, thank you everyone and welcome here, 10 a.m. Enough people and that's great. Thanks for coming here. Yeah, let's start. Who are we? Thanks for the introduction, Molly and myself, Erik. Molly?
Nothing to tell.
Okay, then let's straight get into action. Maybe some words before. We are not the only persons behind HedgeDoc. There are more people. We are just the ones who make the talk here. Yeah, maybe let's start with a quick hands up. Who is currently the maintainer of the FOSS project? Just so in the room. Okay, some hands, great. So a bit of yeah, everything. Let's get into it. Well, when we were preparing the talk and we were arriving the day before yesterday, we found this code and we read it and Molly sent it to me. And it was a situation like, well, we have this code right here and it's like, well, our talk is done. I think we can show this and we can go from the stage and great. But no, of course, we continue with our talk. But yeah, it's a quick heads up before because many people think maintaining a FOSS project, you are committed to it, you have to do it, you have to fulfill certain standards, but you don't have to. It's okay, and that's essentially what this code says. It's okay to do it in your way, to do it like you want to do it, and it's also okay to not do it and to not do it anymore further and to make a change of direction. And just keep that in mind. It's important also for your mental health to keep your eye on you and maybe also a bit on the project, but if the project is too much, maybe it's time to let it go. Let's start baking a FOSS-Maintainer. So what is a FOSS-Maintainer? First, let's get some ingredients and we start with a project. A project, you probably should really want to use that and you should enjoy it in order to be a maintainer of it. And yeah, in my case, I discovered HedgeDoc, the project I'm now co-maintaining as a tool hosted by my university. And I was like, oh, this is a really nice software. Let's maybe improve it a bit, do some small contributions. And yeah, I was catched by the tool. And that's one essential part. If you don't have the right feeling with the project, you probably maybe not should maintain it. The second part, the people. If you have the right people around you, it's fun, it keeps the motivation high, and it's just a great thing to do it together. If you're just a person alone and doing your stuff and it makes you happy, it's also great. But if you have people around you in a FOSS project which are constantly just on another wavelength than yourself, maybe not the best situation. So, yeah. And finally, sometimes you also need the circumstances. So, for example, you have a change in your job and you have some spare time available, or there's a global pandemic or something alike, and you have some time. And sometimes all it takes is just this right moment to get into a project, to get starting. And yeah, so sometimes you get involved in a project and suddenly you become a maintainer. But involvement is not just contributing code. You can also engage in the community, for example, by writing or answering issues, questions, helping out in a community forum, doing translations, and so many more things. So it's not just that it's either maintaining a FOSS project or nothing, but there's a lot more where if you want to, you can get involved and do it and not have this yes or no thing. On the other side, if you are yourself a maintainer and you know maybe I won't do this forever, you might ask yourself the question, how do I get other people to take over my maintainership of a project if you want that? So if you want to have a legacy for your project, you can search for other people. And the important thing is here to plan your own obsolescence in the first place. So it's important also from a mental standpoint that you disconnect yourself from the project. So you are not the project, and if you leave the project, it's totally okay, and it's totally okay to let it be handled by someone else, and just to think about that also in the first place, even if you have the motivation and everything is great. So already have in mind, maybe someday I won't do this anymore, and that's totally okay. And in order to make it more easy for other people to get involved, you could start by, for example, having some entry barriers reduced. That means, for example, you have guidelines like a contribution guide, which helps new people, how can I find my way along in this project? And also maybe some issues which are easy to tackle, but you let them open as good first issues for newcomers. You can label them accordingly, and then, yeah, if it's not critical, maybe you can do it in an afternoon or so, but maybe it's also a good opportunity for someone else to get into the project and maybe someday later on become a maintainer. And another thing is being transparent is important. So if you have some key decisions, and for example, if you decide, well, the project should go in this direction, or maybe also the project is finished from a feature standpoint and I won't want to commit more time into it, it's also good to be transparent and show that. Well, continue, how do I get people to take over? Another thing is community outreach. So, for example, the community chat or forum, and yeah, some other things like meetups. But at our HedgeDoc community, before we really got into it, the people which are still part of the project but not in that an active role anymore, initiated some community call. They just invited members, all members from the community openly to just join a call on some evening and get to talk to each other. Fun story. We thought a bit, Molly and I, for example, we thought a bit, well, that's a workathon or something like, yeah, let's code something together. We didn't really catch the gist of it, like it just to get to know each other. But yeah, it became apparent, and it's a great method of reaching out in the community, discovering people who might want to get into the project. And yeah, of course, you can also reach out with a README message or something alike. But yeah, it's a general thing. Then, if you have this one person who always commits like 90% of code from an external contribution, you might maybe do a one-on-one contact with them and say, hey, kindly asked, do you have interest in doing something more like maintaining the project? Just important to not pressure them into something, because nobody wants to be pressured into something which they probably not want to do. But yes, sometimes this one-on-one contact is also good. But finally, don't get yourself be rushed into something you don't like. So if you have a bad feeling, your instincts say, well, maybe this person is not the right choice for the project. Let's listen to that instincts of you and yeah, do your decisions in that way. So now we have this how to become a maintainer and what can I do to make other people take over maintainership maybe. But what is a maintainer actually? Let's start. Being a maintainer is more than just coding. And I have here some bullet points. I will go into them in a few moments. The stewardship of a project, code review, like external contributions, community management, system administration, and some parts, legal stuff. Yeah, there's quite a lot of things which are not coding and still are part of maintainership. And yeah, starting with the stewardship of a project, you say, what is the direction or future of a project? So what should be added, what is out of scope, what do we want to do? For example, at HedgeDoc, we like always get the request, you have some great markdown editor for collaboration, but maybe could you make that a more generalized way so that we can use it as a general text backend for other types like LaTeX types, whatever. And no, we said, for the moment, we are a markdown editor, and that's an okay choice. And so if you are in the position that maybe the community asks for something, but you don't have the capacity for that, or you're not into what's that, maybe you just say, no, that's not what we want to do. You can change your mind always later on, but you can make this decision. But sometimes you also must make decisions. I know from a personal perspective that sometimes making decisions is great, but sometimes you don't like making decisions because you have to choose between two things you equally don't like or equally like. And that's also a point you have to be aware of. Sometimes you just not may make decisions, but you also must make decisions. And along that, the great sentence, with great power comes great responsibility, also applies here. If you have a cool project and people somehow depend on that, it also means that you have some responsibility at least to be like a friendly person in terms of not being an asshole to them. And yeah, with that, let's go into another part, creating policies, also part of the stewardship of a project. And what do I mean with policies? It sounds like a very legal term, and maybe sometimes it also is, but in most part it's just to help yourself and help the project to get people into it and yeah, to get everything going well. For example, contribution rules. Contribution rules could be how is the project structured and how should people contribute if they contribute code or translations or something. For example, many projects use external translation tools. And then you could just write in your contribution rules, if you want to contribute translations, just go over to this platform and do it there, and don't open a merge request or pull request in our repository. That could be helpful for the other people and could be helpful for you. Or in our case of HedgeDoc, we have the same issue with the translation, but also we have two versions of HedgeDoc, I would say. When we started, the maintainership, we thought, well, let's polish HedgeDoc a bit and improve everything a bit. And suddenly we were at the point, well, let's just rewrite everything from scratch. I'm not sure if that is always the greatest decision, but we make that decision. And so now we have a repository with two separated Git branches. We have one branch for the existing and still used and maintained current version, and we have a branch for the rewrite. And if you just tell people in your contribution rules, there is this distinction, just be careful to open your pull request, for example, to the right branch. It helps you and it helps the other people. A code of conduct for the community is also a great policy to create. I think there are many templates you can look at and you can use, and just keeps everything on every people on the same line. Another topic, especially in the last time, the AI or LLM usage. There are projects which are more targeted with AI slop merge requests or pull requests. Fortunately, we still haven't got so many of them. So we haven't written a policy for that yet, but maybe let's see what the time gives. And also in that case, you can differentiate. You can say, okay, we are on the standpoint AI usage is maybe not the best in terms of ecology, etc. I don't want to get into that. Let's just say no AI contributions here. Or you say just if you contribute code, be careful and yeah, be responsible for that. And you say, maybe if you use AI, declare that, but be responsible of that. Could be, yeah. And finally, vulnerability reporting is also a critical point in terms of maintenance. Molly will explain a bit more about that later, how we do that, and what's good to have in mind for that. Now let's go over to sometimes the fun and sometimes not the fun part, money. And open source projects don't always are connected with money and monetary value, but sometimes they are, and sometimes it gets really fast to have some expenses or maybe also some income. So let's start how to collect money. And there are different platforms. We once also sat together and looked at these platforms like LiberaPay, GitHub sponsors, etc. and evaluated them, and for example at LiberaPay we found out, okay, there is a round-robin principle of distributing the incoming donations, and maybe that's not what we need because we have some regular expenses, and just distributing that along the maintainers does not help in this case. And so we went over and yeah, founded our own registered community, Verein, and that's also a way you have a legal entity and you can open a bank account, which might become nice. It's, of course, some paperwork, but it's okay-ish, I would say. Depends on how much time you want to invest in that. And yeah, you have the benefit of having a legal entity behind a project and not having the responsibility of the whole project on one person's name in a legal sense. Now, how to spend money as a FOSS project. Domains, of course, everybody loves domains, and what's a project without a domain? So that can make expenses quite quick go up. Hosting providers, for example, for demo instance or some public documentation, etc., if you have some hosting for that. Stickers and other marketing. And one important point I want to talk about is upstream donations. If you receive donations and your project really depends on one core library or maybe a few core libraries, maybe go a moment into that and think, what expenses does this library maybe have? Or does the maintenance of that require some additional cost? And maybe you have some spare money from your own project donations and you can just give them forward to these other projects you depend on, and so build a more healthy ecosystem would be great. I already said in the slide, maintaining is more than just coding. Code review is also an important point. And we reviewed quite a lot of pull requests, I would say, and essentially what we figured out is not just what is the contribution in terms of what code was contributed, but also how to deal with it. And essentially, you can say be thankful. A simple thank you really can make someone scale. You don't know what's going on in their life. And yeah, we also sometimes got into yeah, some talks. For example, some person opened a pull request, and yeah, I think it was about some feature they wanted to add, and they were not completely sure about that, and we were just nice and thankful, and the person was happy about that and contacted me, and we were discussing other features, and that's just great to get into knowledge with people you just didn't know before. And it's simple. Another thing is be timely, and yeah, we also have to admit sometimes it's just not possible to react to everyone in the speed you would like. But sometimes just saying, okay, I will look at this tomorrow evening or the next week or so is also a great way to show, okay, you're present, you appreciate a contribution, but you just didn't have the time to look into it more in a more detailed way. So yeah, such a message could help. And finally, be cautious. Not everyone has good intentions. Fortunately, we didn't have the problem at HedgeDoc yet. But we see in the FOSS community many attempts, unfortunately, to distribute some kind of malware or other bad stuff, and we don't want to have that in our repository, so just be cautious. Not everyone is on the same page with us. Community. Well, as I said earlier on, we had this great way of having a community call and getting to know each other in this way. And that's essentially getting to know each other and exchanging ideas what a community should do. And for that, it's quite a good idea to provide a space for interaction. And we, for example, have a chat and a forum. And you can also combine different of these things. Our chat is more like the just quick notice, okay, something changed, or answering some questions, being supportive, sometimes also just talking about our things, our unrelated project things. And the forum is a great way to showcase, for example, other cool stuff built with your project, with your things or configurations, etc. And we have this chat and forum, but that also means you have to somehow moderate them. Enforcing the COC, tackling spam, because sometimes there are things you don't want to see and they come. And for us, this meant we had to completely shut down open registration and open posting to the forum, because at some point the forum was more like advertisement for casinos than talking about the project. So sometimes you have to have some limits there, or even have some moderation, for example, also bots in a chat or something like, because there's stuff you really don't want to see and don't want to have on your servers and so on. But it's also not just being, having a space for the community, but also on the other side, being present, the outreach, blog, website, and some social media posts. We had, for example, formerly Twitter X account, now a Mastodon account, and sometimes you just see some great post of someone who uses your project and you just retweet that, and it's spreading a bit what other people do, it's spreading a bit what you do, and it's great for everyone. You can also somehow automate that a bit in terms of like having a repository. We do that, for example, having a repository where you just can merge in toots as files, and then they automatically get tooted. So it's a nice way to not having to share credentials, but also just have access for everyone. And also let the community be heard. So if you are present and you have a space for the community exchange, it's great to ask the community, would you rather have this or that? And one example is our logo design competition. As we rebranded from the confusing name CodeMD, because there were two projects named like that from some historical standpoint, we were in the community forum and had this new name and were in search of a logo, and just had an open post. Everyone who has an idea, please post your logo idea. And it was really a so great experience to see all these different ideas come together and refine on the ideas, vote on the ideas. And somehow we also got contributions from a logo designer from France. And They were a professional logo designer, professional graphics designer. And they just contributed this logo to the project. And in a really good way, so with some guidelines and with font and color scheme and everything. Really great. And you maybe not know of these people, and with an open community, yeah, you can get such a contribution, and that's really great, and it was a really fun thing to have all these ideas coming together. And I really can recommend everyone to just be open in this community and get these ideas, because it's really great. Okay, system administration, quickly, what's about with that? Domains, hosting of, for example, public instance, your own CI runners, but be aware, all this costs time and money. So before you start and say, oh, maybe our project needs our own web lake for translations, or our project needs our own whatever, think a moment, do you really need it? Or is it just nice to have? And do you really have the time to maintain that and to keep it up also in terms of money? Also for the legal stuff, and now it's a story in a few moments we had. Be aware of legal consequences. So there's copyright, licenses, privacy, the hosting of a public instance, etc. And you are legally responsible somehow. As I mentioned earlier, we have a registered community, so this Verein, this community, is also the legal entity who is responsible, for example, for a public instance. That's better than having it distributed just on one shoulder, but there could be legal consequences. Just be aware of that. And there are great communities to help FOSS projects with legal questions. For example, the FSFE has a legal network, or the Software Freedom Law Center provides some legal expertise if you need that. But it's just good to know that there is something like that. And in our case, we experienced that with a DMCA takedown notice. We had an open demo instance, free to use for everybody, and it was never cleaned up, and it was like, just put your notes on here and upload your images, and nobody has bad intentions, right? Yeah. People started and used the demo instance as a file sharing platform. And we got this takedown notice and found out, oh, apparently, our demo instance is now a top spot for downloading copyrighted ebooks. And also, our demo instance is a great way to discover new casinos. And our demo instance is maybe also a way to download some fishy files and host some download here, clicky buttons. No, you don't want to have that. And we got this notice, we reacted quickly and shut that down, and everything worked well, but just be aware of that. There could be some situation like that. And our consequence was, okay, we now have a set of rules, like no production usage, because we daily delete the instance. It helps with public instances. And also some page like click here to accept, and so at least you kind of legally accepted the conditions. And just have in mind having open instances in the internet of your own FOSS project. It's maybe a good thing if you want to showcase it, but also could have some drawbacks. And with all that, now let's get over to the fun part. Maintaining is also coding.
Thanks. Maybe a quick thing about the legal takedown. Something to keep in mind. We got the takedown, and then we had to answer it and to do something in 2 days, and suddenly everything else fall a bit apart, all the plans, and okay, we do that now. So that can happen. As Erik said, FOSS-Maintainership is also coding, as you probably figured already. Want to go over a bit of things there we learned and we found out. Probably most of that is common knowledge and should be common knowledge, but nevertheless can't hurt to mention it again. For example, automation. You should look into automating your processes and don't do everything manually if you don't need to. What do I mean with that? For example, dependency updates. Idea is quite easy. Hey, let's have a bot propose updates to your dependencies. As our project is in the JavaScript, TypeScript ecosystem, we got a lot of dependency updates. Other projects probably don't get as many as that, but of course you also get those. And instead of needing to remember to do that, let a bot do that for you. And there's renovate bot, depender bot, update, CLI, for example, just to name a few things. But please be careful and keep the human in the loop. Many of those projects allow to have auto merging of pull requests. That's great and easy and sounds very, very nice, but it can possibly lead to problems. I mean, there's some things you probably want to auto-merge, like patch releases or something like that. That's probably totally fine and doable, but maybe the next great version 3 is something you want to have a look at. And even if you have those bots, please keep in mind you need to have some time to review those and look at them. We famously take about once each month to do all the updates, if nobody else had time, and that can easily take up an evening of looking into it and finding out what other projects did, especially as release notes are sometimes a thing of the past, I guess. CI testing, you should do that. If you don't do that, please do that. It helps you. It helps you to make better decisions. For example, with dependency updates, it's just super, super great to have a dedicated test suite with many, many tests that gives you confidence in, okay, this update doesn't break anything. And if it did break anything afterwards, please add a test. And it keeps your project working. It helps you to review pull requests from external contributions. It helps yourself if you forget something. Linting is also great for that. Just in general, keep that. And if your project breaks in any way when something changes, your test should fail. If that isn't the case, you didn't do testing right. Also, be aware of the exhaustive test trap. We have quite a big configuration file for HedgeDoc 2, and when we start testing that, we figured that, yeah, there's this, which could have this 5 values, and then this Boolean flag, and here could be some URL, and that could have HTTP or HTTPS, and let's combine all that and make the superset of all the permutations, and let's test everything, and we had like, I think, like 5,000 tests or something, and they didn't help anything. They just took a lot of time to work out and to build them. I mean, we used some looping for that, of course, but it's not easy to maintain, it's not helpful. Do the stuff you need and don't do more. There's also templates and forms for PRs and issues. Use that if the platform you're using offers that. We are currently still at GitHub. Probably will want to switch over to Codeberg at one point, but first let's get our stuff working, and then maybe. You can use that to direct people to the correct channels. So, for example, if you have an issue tracker and the first page of the issue tracker is, hey, what do you want? And one of the things they could click, what they want is like, I want to have support, I want someone to help me, then maybe here, go to the chat or go to the forum is the correct answer, because I'm not sure how you handle things, but at least we ourselves like our issue tracker with issues, problems, feature requests, whatever, and not so much general support requests. How something doesn't work, could you help me please, is exhaustive, and at least in my brain, new issues trigger different parts as new community posts, different emergency and priority things. In general, ask people before they submit a pull request and issue instead of afterwards. It's so easy to just get the information you want to have from them and ask them in the dialogue, hey, please tell me, what version do you use? What are the steps you did? Not everybody is a professional software developer. Not everybody knows how to correctly give you the information you need. I'm sure many of you possibly work in software architecture or in software in general, and you will all have colleagues that are not able to give you correct bug reports. So why should we think that our communities can do that? Let's help them. Have a pull request checklist. So everything you want people to do when they submit a pull request, let them check up the boxes that they did that. Sometimes they lie, but more often than not, they just submit an empty checklist, and then you know, okay, nobody did anything. Great, I know that, and I don't need to invest super much time in that before something happens. For our case, this looks like this when you create an issue, and as I said, there's this, hey, maybe you want to give a community, go to the community chat. There's also like, here, this is a feature request, this is a bug report, giving the correct text, immediately giving such things quite nice. And if you have those templates, this could look like this. So like, what's the description? What did happen? What's the steps to reproduce? And so on and so forth. This is valuable time you win over from the community, because otherwise they'll submit a request and then 3 weeks later when you come to it, you're, okay, please, I need to know. Could you also tell me? You know that beforehand. Please let them know. This is our release checklist, for example, with the different, hey, I updated tests, or I didn't. I updated the documentation, there's a changelog snippet, stuff like that, that probably helps with keeping your churn down. And so this is helpful, and please use that. Coming to frameworks and libraries, many projects don't stand on their own and use other projects, other frameworks, libraries. And the big question is often, how do I choose a library? There's like 15 different for whatever. First question there is always, do you really need a library? There's stuff you probably really want libraries for. Crypto, file conversion, some validation is probably good invested in an external library. But to make the famous example, is odd is nothing you really need to import in your project. Please. And similar, there's big, great projects, but you just need this one function that you could write yourself. And then maybe just don't have all the baggage of the whole project, all the transitive dependencies in there. You don't need that. Keep that in mind. When choosing a library, how many users does the lib have? What's the stars like on GitLab? When was the last release? What's the update frequency? How often do they come out with new stuff? Or maybe it's a finished library, or they only updated it once in a blue moon, or what's going on there? What's the license like? Also, important thing to remember. In general, the first impression counts. When you look at the page and you're thinking, this looks fishy, it probably is. And you probably need to go look somewhere else. Sometimes that's very sad because, hey, this library solves my problem. Should I make, I don't know. Don't. It's better, probably. Also, quite an interesting thing to look at is how many Claude MD files are in there, how many, depending on what your stand is on AI, maybe that's also a good indication. Did somebody vibe code this library, or is it hand-worked by some person? The other thing is the sunk cost fallacy. It's probably a known thing in library terms. We mean when the library does not work, when it needs constant babysitting, each new release takes you like 50 minutes or even a whole day to get it working because everything changed again and something broke, and this obscure case that you had that you use, they don't consider as much relevant as you, and they broke it again. Get rid of it, or at least consider it. Sometimes that doesn't work. Sometimes it's not possible, but really think about that. Yes, even if you invested so much time into that, even if you worked so hard to get that thing working and putting in and everything. We ourselves used for HedgeDoc 2 TypeOM, which is which is an ORM system for TypeScript, which looked very promising when we chose it. Built our whole system on that, all the services, all the stuff in the backend. Used TypeOM as the main thing. Yeah, I know, probably we should have some abstraction layer there, but hey, we didn't. And each update broke in different and catastrophic ways, and David, who is in the audience today, had a lot of fun working on that. Look at him now struggling air, strangling air. And we far too late decided, okay, let's get rid of that. We can do better. And it won't help to invest another day to get it working again. Let's just use those 2 weeks and replace those library, as it doesn't work for us. Other thing is versioning. You should be aware of, as a software maintainer, both for yourself, what other people are expecting from you when you use different version schemas, and what you can expect from other projects. Quite an important thing. I just want to quickly go over them. Zemware is probably the most known. It's basically how big is the difference to the new version. There's major, minor, and patch. And the whole thing breaks down like, okay, patch release is something small that changed. Should be no backwards compatible problem, no thing, just update, everything's great. Minor is typically add a new functionality. It's especially for libraries. But everything else works as intended. And the major version, so a 2.0, a 3.0, whatever, should include breaking changes. Meaning for you as a maintainer, if there's an update for, let's call TypeOM 3, they are not there yet, never mind, but you probably want to have a deeper look in that and see if what's going on there. There's also ROMware, which is a more intuition-based version, basically same typed out, but minor is the backwards compatible changes, major the breaking changes, and the project is like the advertisement version. Think of Firefox, for example. They just release a new version every so often, and so on and so forth. Then there's also Calware, which is when was the version released, something you probably want to look when you build some application that users use, so that, for example, HedgeDoc should probably use that, but we see. Just put the year there. Sometimes people do funny stuff with that. Think of Ubuntu. I think the current version is 26.04, which came out in April 2026. Oh boy. Then there's effort versioning, which tells you about how much effort is the update to deploy. They define it like this, and basically it's similar to Semware, but a bit more on the effort part and not the actual thing. And if you choose one of those version schemes for your project, and please choose whatever you want, but please, for the love of God, keep it with it, stick with it. Nothing is more frustrating than a patch release that breaks the whole setup. And that's something you don't want, that's something other people don't want, so please just keep it in mind. I'm not sure if I'm preaching to the choir here, but I said what I said. Then there's also licensing, which is a whole can of worms we won't get into here now, because that could easily take 1 or 2 hours more. There are some links if you are interested, and many, many, many more resources, and probably also talks on media.ccc.de, where you can learn a bit more about licensing and what license for your project is probably the right one, or maybe the right one. But please have a look at that. Or you will have the problem that, yeah, well, people will ask you about that at one point or another. Then there's also security and vulnerability handling. So, first of all, it's totally fine if you say, I don't care. Please just put the 0-day exploits for my software right on the web. Not my problem, not my cup of tea. That's okay. But if you care, please document your process. Have a security MD. Make it easy for people to understand how they can reach you, how they can tell you stuff in more or less secrecy, what's going on, what's probably broken. You could have, for example, we use GitHub security reporting, which is quite nice. We also had a dedicated email address before. There's platforms like HackerOne. If you want to have dedicated channels for that, you should invest in them. You probably will after the first vulnerability report that broke your system, but maybe just do it a bit earlier than that. That could be helpful. And when you deal with them, please keep in mind, timely action, just have a quick look as soon as possible. I know life comes in the way and everything, but sometimes a vulnerability is really, really bad. And sometimes it's just like, yeah, okay, thank you. There's also this README which says HedgeDoc 2 is not yet ready for production. We don't have everything included. You don't need to report us CSP violations. Yes, we know. There's this issue to do that, you know. But that's also helpful just to keep the mind of things, to know, hey, okay, this is handled, this is worked on. Verify the reports. Most timely as well, in a timely manner, because sometimes people just, especially now, sometimes people just create AI slop security reports and yeah, well, oh, that didn't work, great, thank you. Also, templating with their helps to get things working in a better way and quicker and stuff like that. And also maybe think about when you release the fix to the public. So when is the public available to see this fix? Because it doesn't really help if you let yourself get 0 days reported in an anonymous and secret way, and then 3 weeks before the next release you publish basically everything onto the repository. Depending on how big your software project is, this is probably okay, but maybe, don't know. Just keep that in mind. Something else. Keep a release checklist. This is, I think, the greatest thing I learned from all the time I did maintaining HedgeDoc. It's so helpful. It standardizes the process. It helps you to not forget anything. And when you do the checklist, when you did everything, the last point, the very last point in the checklist should always be update the checklist. You always have something to update. You have some commands you needed to look up that could be in there. You did something wrong because previously you know that you need to do that there and you did it somewhere else. Not that I did, but hey. There's always something better to do, and please update that. That's a great thing, and it helps you to get a release out quicker. I think we once took like 30 minutes for a HedgeDoc 1 release. 1 hour from the bug report that needs to be fixed to the release, which was quite an astonishing accomplishment. But that was also in part just possible because we knew how the process works and everything we need to do. And for example, just to give you an idea, you can look up our release checklist. It's on the repository, if I recall correctly. There's also points in there like, okay, create a pull request for the announcement on social media that there's a new release. That's at least, I think, point 3 or something on the checklist. Keeping motivations high. Find other people you do this stuff together with. Being a lonely warrior can be interesting, can be helpful, but it's also quite exhausting, and maybe get somebody else to help you with that. Either a friend, someone from the community. It's really, really good to keeping motivations high, to help you keep focused, help you find a new perspective. The thing we had in the beginning, you don't need to do this. This is volunteer work, and you don't owe anyone anything. Please keep that in mind. It's okay to step away from all of this at any point for any reason. And you don't need to feel pressured into anything. I mean, most of you will probably be pressured into anything, into some things, as am I, but this is a really important mantra to keep in mind. You're not getting paid for that. You don't owe the community anything. You did the work, and that's okay, and that is more than enough. We also found this quite nice blanket that Daniel Stenberg, the curl maintainer, got sent in the post, and I think that is like a beautiful statement in itself. Curl is just the hobby of some guy that has no business providing a service to 1 billion people, and that's totally right. I mean, I guess at some point he has a business there and stuff like that, but you know what I mean. Another aspect, keep your eyes on the prize. Distractions are totally okay and can be fun. I mean, hello, this is quite distraction from developing HedgeDoc 2, but it's something we wanted to do, and we thought that maybe that could be helpful for other people. But keep in mind, ask yourself when a side quest opens up, is it really something you want to do, that you enjoy, or is it just something that people tell you you need to do because, hey, you're the Markdown guy, do the Markdown stuff. Don't let yourself be caught up in side quests if you don't want to. It's okay to just say no. Other tool in our repository that we found it's really helpful is regular meetings. Carve out some time each week when you want to work on the project, when you help, when you do the stuff you do. In our case, that's typically Wednesday evening, like 4 hours each evening, or sometimes more, sometimes less. This really helps. I know each Wednesday evening, I know where I am and where I'll be and what I'll do. Also with planning other activities around the week. Cheat days are totally allowed if you don't feel like it. If something happened, you're ill, somebody else you need to take care of is ill, anything, it's totally okay. Cheat days are fine. Maybe if you do it with other people, tell them beforehand and not like, won't come when it starts, but you know. Don't feel yourself pressured, but it can help to get a regular thing going, if that's something you want to do. What we also found out, what's quite nice, is getaway weekends. Change of scenery can really help. Get away from the everyday stress, meet your fellow developers, or if you do it yourself, that can also be great. Get a vacation home in some forests. In the day you go walking in the forests and enjoying nature, and in the evening you're doing something for your FOSS project. That could be nice. Could be. You don't need to, but it can help. We, for example, did that quite sometimes at the offices of one of the maintainers. The company sponsored this, and that was quite nice. We had internet, we had electricity, computer monitors, everything we needed, even some drinks. Toilets are also important. They didn't sponsor food, but hey, who can ask more? It helps. You have another perspective, you have more time to discuss things in depth. Cool thing. And that's from myself, and I'll give over to Erik.
Okay, so now we talked a lot about what's making a project like, and what do you maybe have to take care of or should have in mind. And now for you all in the audience, maybe take a moment and ask now yourself, what FOSS project do you or your livelihood depend on? What FOSS project do you use every day? And maybe also, what FOSS project blew your mind? You found it, you discovered it on some platform, or you got it recommended, and you just found it amazing. And now ask yourself maybe a second time, in those projects, maybe could you give a helping hand? Or could you financially contribute? Or maybe also could you get your employer to contribute? Maybe also financially or with some work hours. Could be a great thing to keep up FOSS in the community and to get everything in this community done. And maybe with this, I say thank you. I want to just announce we have some Maintainer meetup afterwards at 11:30 in the Blue Saloon. Just having a nice talk and chat for the people who like. You telling stories from your side, discussing topics you like, and let's meet and talk if you want. And with that, I say thank you for your attendance. And if you have some quick questions, we have like 4 minutes left, maybe just raise them now.